It's my honor to invite to our summit stage the chair of the California Energy Commission, David Hochschild.
All right, well, thank you for that generous eulogy. Wow. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? All right. Good to be here. Just by way of introduction, I really want to invite us all to kind of think about this moment and this enterprise we're all engaged in, and actually get excited about how hard it is. It's hard because it matters, and if it were not important, it would have been done already. This is something that I think everybody in this room will have stories to tell their grandchildren. Getting something this big and this important and significant over the finish line through some really significant headwinds, that is something to be proud of. And just, by way of introduction, both my grandfathers fought in World War II, and just across the water from us here is the Queen Mary. My grandfather, Harold Hochschild, was deployed to Europe on that boat. And so, getting to visit those memories come up, and I think about what an awesome challenge that was for that generation. And it was not clear, going into the war that the U.S. would prevail with our allies, but we did, and that was possible because of incredible collaboration and coordination and tenacity. And so I draw upon my grandfather's spirit in those hard times today, and the knowledge that we can overcome enormous odds, okay? And just to share one story from my family, we, when Trump was elected in January came to office January last year, we had a neighbor in our neighborhood who just printed out these signs that just said, resist. And so we had this in our window. And after a couple months, my wife said, that word is insufficient, okay? She reminded me of this wonderful Buckminster Fuller quote, something to the effect of, don't seek to tear down old paradigms, create new paradigms that by virtue of their success make the old paradigms obsolete. Right? So the operative word is not resist, it's create. And that's what you are all here doing today. And that's what our state is doing and so many others around the country. And I really want to especially give props to the Port of Long Beach. Let's give them another round of applause. Incredible innovators. And thank you all for hosting us here so graciously. So what I thought I'd do is just give a little bit of an overview of what's happening in clean energy in California and sort of where offshore wind fits in. So the good news is that today in the state of California, we're getting more than 2/3 of our electricity from clean sources of energy, okay? I want to recall, this is something that was considered, even to be at this moment, this was considered, mythology a few years ago. I see, my friend Dan Jacobson up here in the front row. He was instrumental in this. I was in the State Assembly gallery in, I think it was 2011, when Jerry Brown was just in office, and his first bill that he signed was a 33% renewable portfolio standard. And there was a legislator who was opposed to this, who was in the back when that passed, and he took the bill and he threw it up in the air. And so there was these sort of snowflakes of pages of legislation falling, and he yelled, this is never going to happen. So that was for a law that required 33%. We're now at nearly 70%. There's a little bit of a lag time on this data, but our estimate today is we're about 70% on the grid. And the law that Governor Newsom signed requires us to get to 90% clean energy by 2035. We're absolutely on a path to do that, and 100% by 2045. So the take-home point here is that alternative energy is the wrong word to use to describe renewables in California, okay? Fossil is alternative on the grid today. And we're continuing to grow that and building, huge amounts of new capacity. Later today, I'm going to go to a new proposed site, which, for the largest battery project in the world. So a lot of momentum on clean energy. And meanwhile, because of the market transformation that's happened in large part because of California policies and those of our sister states, we've had a market transformation across the country on clean energy. And In 2025, last year, 91% of the capacity additions on the US electric grid were clean energy, and 96% of the retirements were fossil. So the grid is getting cleaner. We're also seeing, this remarkable turning point of renewables surpassing coal. When I was just getting started in the energy field in 2000, I was in Washington, D.C., and I snuck into a coal industry conference because I wanted to see what are they talking about. And I remember one of the speakers saying, coal's going to power America for 1,000 years, and renewables are going to stay at this sort of 1% level. We were at 52% of U.S. Electricity coming from coal. As recently as 15 years ago, we're now at 16%, and renewables have now surpassed coal on the grid. One really important feature that I want to spend a little time on that's enabled this renewable growth is the growth of storage, okay? So when Governor Newsom came to office in 2019, we only had a very little bit of energy storage. We're now at 17 gigs of storage on the grid. And I want to highlight, the speed with which these assets have been deployed, because the build cycles for these projects are incredibly fast. Our peak load on a typical day in California is like 25 gigs. So to get 17 gigs of capacity built, since Newsom took office, is an incredible feat. And it's allowed us to stabilize the grid and to decarbonize. So we haven't had a flex alert, in almost 4 years in California. And we're hitting some remarkable decarbonization goals. So this is really a great facilitator of renewable growth. We're really grateful for all the developers and the rest of the policy support that enabled that. And what has happened, in large part because of the storage enabling this, is that we've now deployed 32 gigs of new clean energy capacity since Governor Newsom took office in 2019. I want to locate that statistic sort of in the context of the grid in California. So electricity first came to our state in 1850 in San Francisco after the gold rush. Okay, so in that 76 years, we have had basically 107 gigs of capacity get built, and 32 of that since Newsom took office. So really 30% of the capacity on the grid, utility scale today, has been deployed since Newsom took office. And I think, how many of you read the book Abundance? Raise your hand, a number of you did. So I found that book kind of a welcome kick in the pants to democratic governance and the focus on the need to deploy and build faster. I know it's a very fair critique, but I think this is a big miss in the book. It actually doesn't capture how quickly we've been able to get clean energy on the grid. And so last year was the highest ever. We deployed 7 gigs of capacity in a single year, and more on the way. So as I mentioned, that's enabled a number of things, but maybe this is the most remarkable. So last year, for the first time ever, on the majority of the days in the year, 279 days out of 365, we hit 100% clean energy on the grid for a period of the day. Sometimes it'd be 4 hours, sometimes 9 hours, sometimes 2 hours. But that milestone has never been reached before in our state's history. I think we should give that a round of applause. That's a big step forward for the state. And it matters partly because what is happening is that we're extending the reach of this clean electricity to more and more sectors of our economy. We now have more electric vehicle charge plugs in California than we have gasoline nozzles, right? 216,000 public and shared charge plugs, 120,000 gasoline nozzles. We're seeing, new construction, which was a decade ago only 1% all electric. Today it's over 80% all electric. We build about 120,000 new homes a year in California. This July, the Tesla electric semi-truck factory is going to open in Nevada. 500-mile range electric truck, recharges in 35 minutes. They're going to make 1,000 of those a week. We're seeing class 4, 5, and 6 trucks. Companies like Harbinger here in Southern California, serving FedEx and others electrification. So this clean electricity is really expanding the envelope of the services it's supporting. This is what we project load growth to be, and I just want to highlight. Actually, there's a lot of talk about AI and data centers. That will be a source of growth. But really more than twice that load is electric vehicles. And so really important to know, we're adding about 1,200 EVs a day. So 2 EVs is roughly equivalent to the electric demand of a house. And as I said, the types of vehicles that are getting electrified is expanding rapidly. We have even, police fleets like South Pasadena, fully electrified their police fleet. Oakland, California became the first city in North America to fully electrify its school bus fleet, 74 buses, 74 chargers. So that is going to drive load, and it's part of the reason why we need offshore wind as this load expands. The state goal remains 25 gigs of offshore wind. I want to highlight, the progress happening around the world on the development of the market. Europe is leaning in hard. China, of course, and others. And during this period where we have a federal administration that's hostile to it, the technology is still improving, and we're still investing heavily in that. Our agency, the Energy Commission, has done $46 million of research and development grants to help drive the cost down and support all kinds of projects that will advance the industry forward. We're also pushing out funds for ports. As Adam mentioned, about $43 million for these first tranche of 5 ports, and about $475 million for port upgrades was approved by the voters in Prop 4 in the climate bond a year and a half ago. And so we're pleased to continue to push those funds out. And the current appropriation out of the 475 is this $225 million. So that's open for public agencies, nonprofit organizations, special districts, and so on. And I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle. I just want to share this. This is another kind of exciting milestone. This is a project on land outside Gilroy called Gonzaga Wind. And these are the largest wind turbines ever installed in the state. This is coming online next month. And it's the first combined energy storage and wind project. And just as an example of the kind of innovation that's still possible, this is a repower, okay? So one of these new turbines is equivalent to 9 of the older turbines that they took in. So that, and we should keep in mind, this site itself will probably be repowered down the line and improve. There's one thing that's really on our side here is the innovation curve and the innovation trend. We're just getting started when it comes to cost reduction and advancing innovation. And so there's a lot more we're going to do to drive costs down. And of course, this is a Ming-Yang project of having 2 combined turbines, 25 megawatt turbines, that'll be a 50 megawatt structure. So that kind of thing really driving momentum. And I wanted to just wrap with this, which is that one of the main critiques our state has gotten again and again and again as we have embraced clean technologies and big, bold visions. Because offshore wind is bold, it's big, it's important. It's not the only big thing we're doing this with electric vehicles, with all kinds of other innovative technologies. And one of the critiques we get is, hey, this is going to be devastating for your economy. Okay, we heard that again and again and again. And that was the argument used actually urging Jerry Brown not to sign the 33% renewable portfolio standard. And we went on to sign the 50% and the 100%. So what has happened, in the 15 years or so since that 33% clean energy law was adopted, is that California, which was the 10th largest economy in the world, has passed Russia and Italy and Brazil and France and the UK and now Japan, and now we're the 4th largest economy in the world, okay? This has been good for our economy. It's made California a destination state for innovation, a destination state for investment, okay? 6 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are California companies. So I do think we need to share this a little more widely, that this stuff doesn't undermine growth, it supports growth, and it supports a robust economy. So let me just wrap with this. I came to the Energy Commission from the solar industry. I was in the solar industry in Silicon Valley. You know, the tough challenges we're facing now in offshore wind, the solar industry faced all that and more. Solyndra, some of you may remember that story. I mean, there were people ready to declare a funeral for the solar industry, all right? I heard all this, I lived it. It chilled, you know, policy progress. You know, what happened is that we kept going, we persevered, we never gave up, and there was just incredible tenacity both within the industry and the larger ecosystem, the folks who believed in the economic development possibilities, and all the rest of the community. And now, you know, what's gone on is we've solar, which in 2004, it took a year to build a gigawatt of solar, a year globally. 2010, it took a month. 2016, it took a week. 2023, it took a day to build a gigawatt. 2024, half a day. And now solar is the single biggest investment on the global electric grid, in excess of $500 billion. So my point is, don't listen to the naysayers, okay? Keep at it, we're gonna get this done. Thank you guys, appreciate you.